Welcome back to your favorite podcast, Two Homeschool Moms. I'm Nickie.
And I'm Ashlee. If you're looking for real, raw, and relatable moms who talk all things homeschool and mom life,
You're in the right place.
today we are so flippin' excited. We are doing an episode where we're going to talk about unsupportive spouses. And this was a subscriber request. And so we're just coming back here and we're going to chit chat. We're going to talk about unsupportive spouses, but then like how that has changed for them over time while homeschooling. And the best part is we have our very first official guest coming on here in just a moment. But first, we're going to just kind of give a little bit of an update, like our usual first few minutes here. Anything on your end that you want to update about?
No. No. I don't think I have any.
Man.
I'm trying to think. No, there's nothing going on, except I am getting really excited to come out to Illinois and visit you. So that's all I'm going to share.
I'm really excited. I was already like pre-planning in my head of like, what is there to do in the Chicagoland that's like fun? I'm like, it really depends on the weather, but I'm assuming it'll be like nice enough to go downtown and like enjoy stuff down there. But yeah, I'm excited. Molly's excited. We're all like super stoked. Is that even like a phrase anymore? Do people say super stoked?
My dad. My dad uses like all the old lingos so much, and I'm like, please stop.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's hilarious, actually. We're just really, really, really busy. We, between my job, Molly's in 3 activities right now. We're doing horseback horse lessons, and swim lessons and karate lessons. So we're legit full. And it's okay. She has to move her body per doctor's orders. So we are just in a busy season right now, which I'm just going to call it a season because I don't know how I could sustain this for very long periods of time financially or just physically or mentally. We're having fun with it. I think she's really found things that she's finally really enjoying. She's good at all of it. So that's the hard part is like if we ever had to just like stop. I'm like, she's so good. She's so good at it. So it's just been it's been fun, but I'm tired. Yeah, otherwise we're just hanging about and we're wrapping up our year. Like we have literally, let's see, you'll be seeing this video the end of February. We have like a month and a half. Like we wrap up like mid-April, end of April. Maybe we'll push it into the first week in May, depending.
That's exciting.
Which is just insane to think about.
I can't believe it. Even I was thinking it's almost March. I'm like, in Vegas, like it's summer. Because summer will be here in a month. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't wait. But
and March is my birthday month.
And it is your birthday. Oh, well, I know. I'm like, I don't know why I just thought that, but I'm like, it's a month away, but it's way less than a month away.
It's way less than a month away.
I don't know what I'm thinking.
Yeah. I'm getting old. It's no fun.
Yeah. Well, just act young and you'll be fine.
Oh, that's a guaranteed.
What do you want to do for your birthday? What are your plans for your birthday?
Nothing. Usually I have something like in mind, but I was trying to convince Josh so bad to like fly me somewhere for my birthday. I'm like, I have all these friends that live everywhere. Yeah. And I'm like, I wouldn't have to pay for a hotel. I just crash on their couch or wherever I'm at. Right. And the flights are dumb because it's also like coincidentally around spring break for a lot of people. So I feel like flights are just high.
They're just high right now in general, to be honest. Everything's just getting expensive.
Yeah. Well, so is gas prices right now. Our gas shot back up again. So it's just life, you know? So I don't know. It's on a weekend this year. So maybe we'll like do something as a family. Usually it's just like me and Mal because it's on a weekday or something. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll have like a daycation somewhere.
That'd be fun. Or you could do like your own little getaway on your own. You go stay somewhere for a night and get away from everyone.
Well, that's what I usually have done the last couple of years. I've gotten a hotel for like 2 nights, and it's local, and I just like stay there and binge shows.
Right.
And like, but it's gotten to the point where I'm like, I can kind of just do that at home without being disturbed too.
That's good though that you have that
She's
now
like
at
old
home.
enough to be like independent and not have to bug me
Right.
for every little thing. So I'm like, is it really worth it to spend the money?
Right.
Or can I just do it at home and
spend it on something else?
Yeah, go do something else.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right. Well, then let's get into today's episode. So I'll just start with a couple statistics statistics. It was what I asked on my Instagram. It's nothing official. Because when we were asked this question, you and I, fortunately, our spouses were pretty supportive of homeschooling. So we did not have a lot to weigh in on this, but I did ask over on my Instagram. And so I said, when you first started homeschooling, was your spouse supportive? I had 130 people vote, and 97% of people said yes, their spouse was supportive.
What?
Yeah, which I honestly, that was kind of my thing. I think it would be really difficult if your spouse didn't support it. So
yeah,
that was what I was kind of anticipating.
Yeah.
And then 3% said no. And then I did get a couple people that responded. One person said that their husband was actually homeschooled himself. And that's why he wasn't supportive, because he thought he didn't like learn enough. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. But he was probably homeschooled, we'll guess, 30, 40 years ago?
Yeah.
If that's
when it was so different.
It was so different. So I think they've been able to overcome that as well.
Fun. Well, I'm glad you got that like poll going on your page. Yay! Oh my gosh. For those who are listening, you can't see Dee, but Dee has joined us. She is our official first guest on the podcast.
Yay! Hi, Dee. It's nice to meet you.
Hi. You too. I've heard so much about you.
Uh-oh.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, wonderful.
It's always that like, what have you heard?
If you're friends with Nickie, you have to be amazing. So that's what I'll leave it at.
There we go.
Dee and I go way, way back since her oldest and my only have been babies. We met in a local moms group. And they were like, I don't know, 3 months old maybe. And we went on like a walk, and then things we kind of drifted for a while because she went back to work. And so she was a full-time working mom for a long time. And then before you started homeschooling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm so excited you're here. And the topic is so good. So good. Yeah,
well,
do you just want
to?
Do you want to introduce yourself besides your name?
Sure. So like Nickie said, I'm Dee. I have been homeschooling now for 3 years, and before that, as Nickie mentioned, I was a full-time working mom. So we were in like the, expensive daycare where my 2-year-old and 3-year-old were wearing, uniforms. So we went from like this like academically focused at preschool age to like homeschooling, free learning, play, total almost, switcheroo for us. But I have 3 girls. They are 9, 7, and 2.5. And so they are lots of fun and lots of energy. Also, we have a dog and a cat, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and they just moved recently to a really cool property with some land, not like a ton of land, but a lot more than like she used to live in my town, and we're just very like closer to the city over here. So she's got a really nice built-in pool that we like to take advantage of, and the heater that's in it that Vegas don't know anything about.
So we don't need a heater.
Yeah, we do. Homeschooling totally like changed everything, right? It was like, well, now I want more space. Now I want to, have a dead end street where I can let my kids run amok, and I want the pool to keep us occupied because we can use it for so much longer than most can.
We brought you on today because we're talking about unsupportive spouses, and then seeing the change over time that you may have seen in your spouse. Well, let's just start with your story. You said you've been homeschooling for 3 years, and can you share your journey, how it began, and considering your husband's initial reaction to what he may have thought when you're like, hey, we're going to homeschool?
So we started homeschooling our 3 girls in 2020, like a lot of people did. It was driven by the pandemic. Olivia, our oldest, would have been going into kindergarten, and she would have been virtual, and just the idea of having her sitting on the computer all day when I had just recently stopped working and I was home anyway, just seemed like, well, I can do kindergarten, right? That's not so hard. It was actually my mother-in-law who suggested it, and not something we had considered in the past. We were more on the pushing, them into the rigorous academic daycare where she's 3 years old and wearing this cute little uniform, and I mean, she looked adorable, but maybe that would not be the choice I would make today. Not to say that she had any detriment from it. However, now we're totally different. We've been doing this for going on 4 years now, and for me, there's really no looking back. I think when we first started, it made perfect sense to both of us, my husband and I, and we were pretty well aligned. When we first started, I also felt the most comfortable with using a full curriculum. I was using Oak Meadow, and I still use it, just a little differently now, but I was using Oak Meadow for kind of everything, and had every subject in it. And I really liked that idea because this was so new to me that I didn't really know how to navigate it yet, how to find different curriculums for every subject. Wow, that was mind-blowing and overwhelming. So I said, oh, great, here's one that I can use that's all in one. And it was so beautiful and wonderful. And we really enjoyed it. But then I started to realize, I can do this. I can this is starting to become natural. It's starting to work in our natural days. And that's when I started to fall more into the unschooling category of things. And that is where I would say my husband and I can have a little bit more of that, those differences, and maybe where I feel like it's the biggest struggle for us when we're talking about homeschooling. So, for him, he's totally supportive as far as our base reasonings for them to be homeschooled, and maybe some of his reasonings, he feels more conviction on some than others, and vice versa. However, I think he would much prefer it if, we were doing a more school at home approach than an unschool approach. And when I say unschool, that's really means so many different things to so many different people. And it's actually almost a scary term to even label us with, because there's some maybe more negative thoughts about what that means. Do my kids just run amok and, they just want to learn about, dogs and cats, and they want to go outside and play, and they want to, watch TV, and, they're never going to want to learn to read. They're never going to want to do math, because if you're just letting them direct their learning, well, what kid's going to want to, actually learn anything of value and long-term importance unless you're pushing them? Well,
so Dee, you're an unschooler. That's what you would categorize yourself, right? We just literally filmed an episode on unschooling. Yeah. Because we had very different, which I don't even know why I had different perspectives of it, because you unschool and I know you and we see you all the time. But
in my opinion, and from what I've seen, just that freedom gives them the opportunity to want to learn and to grab onto things and to push for things and to ask for things, and it becomes directed by them. So as I said earlier, I do still use curriculum. I do still use Oak Meadow. However, I don't open it every day. I don't sit down on Sunday night every week and plan my week. I open it up and I kind of take a peek at what's coming up, and I highlight things that I think sound really nice for us to do, and I put them as kind of like, here's some goals for us, or here's some ideas on how to, schedule our days, or here's some, here's a topic that we haven't talked about yet that maybe I can pick some, books out, or find some, interesting YouTube videos for them to, get introduced to the topic, where it doesn't maybe feel as much like the traditional learning where we're sitting down and I'm going through the step-by-step of that curriculum. And that's where, again, I'm pretty comfortable in that at this point. And I believe my husband is getting there. I'm pulling him on, right? But it's hard. It's really hard if you're not in it. He works a traditional, a traditional job that takes him out of the house for most of the day, most of the week. And, on the weekends, we're spending lots of family time. And he's doing some lessons as far as he'll do some fun science projects. And, he'll give them a lot of life skill lessons, which is super fun. And they're so lucky to have, him being involved in that way. But as far as their day-to-day, it's pretty much me. And so for me, I'm seeing that, we have had a really, really busy schedule. Maybe it's all great stuff. Maybe we've been really busy with our homeschool group, or maybe we've had a lot of activities going on, or maybe we've had family visiting, or maybe we've been sick. Maybe the weather has been miserable and we have all just kind of felt miserable because the weather has been miserable. And we have gone 2 weeks and we haven't done a single math lesson. Maybe we've gone 3 weeks and we haven't done a single math lesson. And suddenly we go back and we go to do the next lesson, and somehow, some way in that period of time from the last time we sat down and did a lesson, they have taken that and on their own run with it, and they've been doing it whether they realize it or not, and we get back to it and we skip ahead 2 or 3 lessons. Does this happen every time? Of course not, but it does happen. In something as, from what my personal opinion would be something as difficult as math, to trust that it could just be learned on its own. That to me was like a prime example. The other ones I feel like are a lot easier, a lot simpler, history and science and things like that. And I think my husband can get more on board with those, where, we can follow their interests instead of me saying, you need to learn about ancient Egypt right now. My oldest is super into World War II, and she wants to learn about that. So great, we're learning all about World War II. I'm giving her all the resources I can. We're, gobbling up all the library books we can. My middle child is super into learning how to be a vet when she grows up. So we've been doing a lot of science based on, animal science and body parts and medicine and nursing and things like that are feeding their interests. So it's not that I'm never picking up a book or never using curriculum, but when we get to the end of the day and my husband comes home from work, and he asks the kids, hey, what did you learn today? Like so many, they don't have the maybe the words to articulate to him what it is they did. Did you do any schoolwork today? No. We didn't do any schoolwork today. Well, I know that they didn't sit down at their desks. We didn't sit down, and I wasn't a traditional, in a traditional teacher role that day. And no, maybe we didn't get through the math lesson that I told you yesterday I was planning to do with them today. Or maybe we didn't do their spelling words, and we haven't done them in 2 weeks. And but we've done so much learning in that time that, for me, it really doesn't matter. I'm fully in and I'm trusting that process. But when we get to the end of the day and there is not that tangible evidence of their learning, that's when that lack of support is what you can say is where we get into that. And maybe lack of support is the wrong word, because there's a lot of support, but maybe just that really big noticeable difference in style preference. And as you can probably imagine, that homeschooling is not the only area of our lives that we differ in that way.
Yeah, because he's kind of more like on the fence of like you said, style wise. Like he wants that structure, and you're just like not that person in like any aspect of your life. So like that's why unschooling fits so well for you, and like you guys thrive on that, because that's just how you guys like live. And so I could see how that could be hard for him to like get on board with that like mindset.
Really, when it comes down to it, we have to just continue to realign on why are we doing this? What are we trying to get out of this? You know, what don't we want? You know, it's not that we're against ever sending them to public school, but for us, this feels like it's the right thing and the right fit. And so we have to kind of keep going back to what is it that we are aligned on. And it's interesting to me now, you know, having gone through such a wide gamut of, you know, the really, like I said, academically focused 3 and 4 and 5-year-old programs, full-time, you know, they're in there 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. every day. And, you know, then into when we first started homeschooling, doing a full, complete curriculum that encompasses every subject, that gives me step-by-step, you know, every single, you know, detail that I need to, you know, direct their education. And I could not have started it without doing it that way. And then now into my kind of unschooling phase, if you will. And it, you know, maybe a lot of that is driven, and probably a lot of that is driven by the fact that I have a 2-year-old, and it's really hard to schedule things when you have a baby or when you have a 2-year-old, because as you know, they don't care about your schedule. They don't care all about your schedule. They care about their schedule. And that's not very fun when you're doing school with their big sisters, right? Especially when they become a toddler and they want all that attention. So I've learned to just stick these things in where we can stick them in. You know, when she is occupied, or when she's happy doing a project, or if we're out and about and, you know, one kid is doing their horseback riding lesson, the other kid is sitting with me doing math while, you know, the little one is playing with chalk. So again, it's not that it's never being done, but that lack of a structure and that lack of a schedule is where sometimes those arguments can come in. And so then, you know, I talk about arguments, and some of those things can be between him and I. Some of those things can be between him and the kids. Some of them can be between all of us as a family. But for example, some things like, you know, the other day I said, my 7-year-old's not reading yet. She's working on it, and I think she's doing really, really well. And I'm not pushing, because that's my style. I'm going with her when she wants to. I'm encouraging it. I'm offering it to her. But I'm not forcing it, and I'm not pushing it. I'm not doing it every single day, because that doesn't work for her. So yesterday we're talking about the fact that she's not reading yet, and do we need to send her to some kind of, you know, human learning center or one of those types of places? And, you know, my initial reaction is, I don't think so. I think if you really are concerned about it, you know, maybe I can just do it a little bit more often with her. But what I said was, it's not like I do nothing. And his reaction was, well, I hope you do more than not nothing. And, you know, so there we go with the prime example of, like, for me, I'm like, well, of course I'm not doing, you know, nothing. I'm directing, and I'm leading, and for the most part, I'm supporting. That's what I really see it as, is I'm supporting. But that's not how traditional schooling works. That's not how the traditional way of learning is has been ingrained in us, and neither of us had a homeschooling experience. We had both had, he had private Catholic school and then public school, and I had public school experiences, so this is new to us. There's some tough moments between us when it comes to their education and how much I am or am not doing.
I have a question though for you. So, because my husband has made certain comments. So, like, when I have a hard day homeschooling, I'm just like, this is a lot. He'll be like, well, you can send them back to school. And I'm like, no, that's not the support I need from you. I need you to, like, so it's not that he's against it, but there are times where it's like the easy cop out. And it can kill my confidence. It can be like, well, then what are we doing here?
Totally. We get into the same conversations, and he even uses it with the kids. Like, you know, like, look at this, the school bus is going by right now, you know, and all the other kids are getting on it, you know, and you guys are still in your pajamas, you know, make sure you're getting to your math homework today, or your math work today, you know, like, okay, sir, you know, like, have a nice day, honey. But no, he does. He makes comments about things. I think, you know, our middle child is, I would say, neurodiverse. And so I think he recognizes for her that, you know, in particular, that being home is a good environment for her. Our oldest really thrives in like a teacher-led environment. And she was the one who was in more of those experiences in her young childhood. But so he oftentimes will question, like, you know, would she be further ahead if, you know, and, you know, would she be, you know, doing more of X, Y, and Z? Would her handwriting be neater? You know, would her, you know, whatever that might look like. So it's tough. It's tough to feel like, okay, this is the person that you just want to be like, yeah, you go, honey.
Yeah, that's difficult. I mean, I've never, like, Josh has never really made a comment ever, like, whether it was positive or negative, I guess. Like, he's just been very supportive in the way of, like, whatever I say is just kind of how he feels as well. And so he's just kind of rode that train, and I'm totally okay with that, because I don't know how I would have handled, like, those negative comments, because they're hard to hear, especially when you're doing so much work and you're putting in so much time and effort that they don't necessarily see because they're not there, or at least not there all day, every day, like we are. With like Kirk Cameron or someone, who was that, really quick, and like what his take on the movie was. So if you just want to dive right in.
All right. So when we went to see the Homeschool Revival with one of our homeschool groups, and it just was really impactful for him to see all the other families and for it to be a little bit more normalized for him. For me, it's easier when I have the homeschool groups that we're with during the week and all the other moms that I can, you know, see and talk to for examples, but something about really seeing the full family picture and all of the different whys and ways was another point that really helped bring it home for him.
Was the movie like super insightful too?
I would say it depends. In my opinion, you know, I've read so many books, and many of us more seasoned homeschoolers, I mean, 3 years, I'm saying I'm more seasoned, but have been exposed, I think, to a lot of the conversations that happen in the movie. So I wouldn't say that I found there was anything like new or profound, but maybe a little bit more affirming and, you know, reassuring is what I would say.
So Dee, if you had to give advice to someone who's maybe dealing with this right now, like they're wanting to homeschool and their spouse is just not on the same page or supportive, like what tips maybe or advice would you give to them?
I think a couple of things. One would be try to come up with some kind of game plan that you can both feel comfortable with. We did create some, you know, things that were just like, at no point will we threaten the kids with like, if you don't do this, then we might send you to school. Like that, we had to make that like this is off the table. And right, thank you. Boundaries. Yes, you have to set some boundaries around it. So I think, you know, maybe easing into it of like, well, let's take it for 1 year. You know, let's see how 1 year goes, and let's set like our expectations for, you know, what we want out of that year, but at the same time, trying to expose both of you to you and your partner to, whatever materials, whether that's books or podcasts or, videos, YouTube videos, or like the movie or other things like that, so that you have a clear understanding of what homeschooling can be. It helps, I think, more information.
Has that made him more actively involved in the process of things as well, because he's ultimately curious, and like does he help with any subjects, or like just to get a feel, or like teach what he thinks they need to know, kind of thing, like if he has this idea in his head?
Yeah, I mean, I think he would like to do more. His work schedule makes it pretty tough for him. We don't get much time with him during the week, and then the weekends we're usually trying to cram in a million fun family things. So that is restrictive for him. But we have like the Mel Science kit, and he does those with them. That's like his thing, because he's a big science and engineering guy. So he likes to do that stuff, and he likes to do, some of what you would call maybe the typical dad stuff, but he likes to teach them skills, life skills, and that's one that he really enjoys, like being in charge of their life skills, things like that.
Hey, but those are just as equally important, as we all know.
Right.
So I like that, to give advice to those, listening who may be struggling with this concept, is really factoring in those boundaries and knowing what you're going to say and what you're not going to say, first of all, in front of your kids, and how you're going to communicate about it to each other. How, what's off limits? How many times are you going to continuously have the conversation? Because that's also something that I feel like would really put down my self-esteem to at least even try to homeschool, is if I was constantly hounded on like, a couple weekly basis of like, is this still working? Like, are we ever going to send them? Hey, look at my daughter's, person's at work daughter is going to this dance, like, are you sure you don't want to send the kids to school? It's that pressure that like we see from like the people who have their kids enrolled in a school, but having those boundaries, I think, is a big to do.
And I think I would say one more thing to add to that too is just also talking about your fears. Like, what is the fear around homeschooling? What are you afraid that will be lacking for them if this is what we decide to do as a family? And just really hashing that out, because you might be deciding that you want to homeschool, but you're afraid of plenty too, even if you're like convinced that this is what you want to do. Doesn't mean you're not scared also. So kind of laying it out together, like, well, this is what I worry about, this is why I'm leaning more this way, or this is and this is the things, and then you can address them as you go along, and you can kind of check in with each other. And so it's not saying it's easy. We're working on it still, but it's, it definitely helps to have it out like that.
Well, and having it on the table of going, hey, any one of our situations can change at any moment to where we may have to go to work full time, or, Ashlee does work full time, but, things may change where she may have to work out of the house, or, whatever it may be. Something can always come up where we may have to put our kids into a public school setting. And so just having that on the table and having our spouse know that, like, it's not that we're against it. We're not against public schooling. It's just, this is what our way of life that we prefer as of right now in this season that we're in, and evaluate it every year.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's what's working right now. And you just want that extra support.
Well, do you have anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
I would just say, follow your heart, do what feels right for your family, for your kids, and just keep talking to each other.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. Well, thanks so much for being our first
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
So great.
Yeah, we're gonna get so much feedback. I already know it, because I know this is such a topic that people don't talk about. It's not discussed. It's not something that people sometimes even want to admit. That their spouse isn't supportive. So I thank you for being vulnerable and open and sharing all of that.
You know me.
That's why all three of us, like, we're all the same, like, I always find the people who are just as open and nutty as I am. So.
No filters.
No filters. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks,
all right,
Dee.
we will see you in our next episode.
Bye, guys.
To hear from you. Your feedback is invaluable to us, so let us know your thoughts on today's episode. Share your topic suggestions or ask us any burning questions you may have. Your input shapes the direction of our podcast, and we're here to create content that resonates with you.
If you enjoy listening to homeschool stories, curriculum reviews, advice, struggles, and overall mom life, this podcast is for you. But so is our YouTube channels.
Don't forget to check out our individual channels. We share even more content, insights, and a behind-the-scenes look at our lives. Thanks for listening.